All right, well, we are finally at the end of writing an APA style paper and we will be putting it all together. Um, so, one thing we haven't written yet are the references. The references go after the discussion and they start on a new page. They are extremely valuable um, because they show us how the current research is related to other research that's out there and provides additional references about the same topic. So very often, if you're doing research, if you're maybe for another class or um, honors thesis or master's thesis, you read someone's paper and then the references become extremely important because you kind of look through there and say, are there any other papers here that are important for me to read? So you will see that as you get more involved in research, that reference page becomes very valuable. You'll also need to write your title. I usually write the title at the very end. Sometimes I write as kind of like a working title in the beginning, but get it finalized at the end of the writing process. And the main function of your title is to provide a concise description of the research. It should be 12 words or fewer, so it's a pretty short title. The title should make sense standing alone, meaning you don't have any abbreviations in there or things that wouldn't make sense to someone if they haven't already read the paper. So they have to be able to read the title and understand it. Your title should have the important variables named or the important theoretical issues. I already read that, major variables, and the population studied as well. Maybe some relationships among the variables. We don't use abbreviations. You don't use any waste words. You're again trying to make this a concise title. And in most cases, the title does not describe the results of the research. So going back to this example of hours of sleep and test scores, your title could be something as simple as the effect of hours of sleep on test scores in college students. In that case, we've talked about the major variables, hours of sleep and test scores, and the population studied in college students. And that's it. You don't need it to be any fancier, any more complicated than that. And your title page is going to be page 1. Page 2 is your abstract. Your abstract is usually the last thing you write. It is a summary of your entire research paper. You have some basic information from each subsection. So from the intro, maybe the purpose of the study, the methods that are used, the primary findings, and implications. And the abstract should stand on its own, allowing, if someone reads the abstract, they should be able to decide if they need to read, if a reader would want to read the entire rest of the article, or they can get enough information from just the abstract. And in fact, it's very common because there is so much research out there that people will just read the abstract for most articles because it gives them generally what they need to know. In neuropsychology, which I'm a neuropsychologist, right, there's so much neuropsychology research. There's actually a journal that just publishes abstracts. It's called Neuropsychological Abstracts. And so it's just a bunch of summaries of all the papers that have been published in the past, whatever it is, month or two. And then from reading those abstracts, you then decide, should I go ahead and read that actual full article? The abstract is short. It's typically 150 to 250 words. If you're writing a research paper for publication, they'll give you a absolute number of words, and it's like one of those text boxes, right, where it says 200 words, and as you're typing, it stops you right at that 200 words. So you can't make it longer or than that. You really have to make it fit. This is hard because you have written an entire paper. For this class, I don't know, maybe your paper is 6 or 8 pages, but even if you write your PhD dissertation, I wrote a dissertation that was hundreds of pages, I still have to come up with an abstract that's about 200 words. So it seems impossible because you've written so much and it's all so important and meaningful to you, but you really have to, make it concise and come up with a good summary. It's like I said, usually written last. Here's an example abstract. Numerous policies have been proposed at the local, state, and national level to restrict youth access to violent video games. So that's kind of from the intro. Although studies are cited to support policies, there are no published research on how children perceived the uses and influence of violent video games. This is kind of the rationale. The study included 42 boys aged 12 to 14. That's it for the participants. Of course, in the methods section, there's more than that, but this is just the summary. And now the results. Boys used games to experience fantasies of power and fame, to explore and master what they perceived as exciting and realistic environments, but distinct from real life, to work through angry feelings. Boys do not believe that they have been harmed by violent video games, but were concerned that younger siblings might imitate game behavior, especially swearing. So there's the results. You notice there's no numbers. You don't put any numbers in there. You're just describing the results. And of course, they probably had many more results, but they're taking the most important results and sticking them in the abstract. These results may be important for future policy planning in regards to video game access for children. And there's sort of an implication sentence from the discussion. So this is hard. Another way that I do this is by taking sentences from intro, methods, results, and discussion, because you've already written that. Take all those important parts. Usually I end up with over a page. And then you start condensing, making it smaller, making it more concise, taking out the words you don't need, taking out the numbers, rewording things in a simpler way, and you kind of get your abstract from there. But this is definitely a section that makes sense to take pieces from different parts of your paper. So like I said, it's a brief summary, some kind of summary statement about the prior research and the rationale. You want to include characteristics of the participants, a brief summary of the procedure. Again, this is all very brief. Report the results of your statistical test. No statistical notation. Don't use R, T, Ps, any of that. To save some space, you can not state your hypothesis separately, but make it clear in stating your results. So again, if you said something like college students who slept 8 hours the night before the test got higher test scores than those who slept 0 hours the night before the test, which is consistent with our hypothesis. Now you've stated your hypothesis and your results all in one sentence, and that's a nice, concise way to do it. And then state your major conclusions, speculations, and allude to future research. And then we're going to put this all together in a very specific way. We've got our anatomy of a research paper. Title page is its own page. Abstract. Intro starts on its own page. Then methods, results, discussion. I'll show you. They all kind of follow. They don't have their own pages. And then references are their own page. Then tables starting at 1, figures starting at 1, and appendices. And appendices are lettered starting at letter A. Now you can look up sample papers, and I will post online a sample paper. And I'm going to actually, this is all the wording for it, but I'm going to go through a sample paper for you right now so that you can kind of look at it with me. And so this is what your paper should look like, and this is what's posted on online for you. And you're going to follow this format exactly. So here is what we call a running head and a page number. You would find the header part in your word processing program, and in all caps, you write, this is actually a shortened version of the actual title. So the actual title is here, and this is a shortened version. So comparison of student evaluations of teaching. This should be 3 to 5 words, your running head. And page number 1, and it's always up here in the right-hand corner. Okay. Then out of the header section, you go down here, and again, you'll be able to see this a little better in your on your own computer, but it's down a few spaces, and you put your title, Comparison of Student Evaluations of Teaching with Online and Paper-Based Methods. And you can see that this is bold and centered. Then you put your name, and then your university, and then the department. We're going to skip the author's note so you don't have to worry about an author's note. Okay, and this is all centered with the title bolded. Page 2, again, you still have your running head with, now it's page 2. That'll happen automatically once you figure out the header. You have the word abstract, bold, and then you write your abstract. One important thing to note is your abstract is not indented like a regular paragraph. Do you see it's not indented? And it is left justified, so you can see you've got everything justified on the left, and you have this ragged edge on the right. So there's your abstract. Then you indent something called keywords. These keywords, you italicize this in a colon, and then it's 3 to 5 keywords. These are the words that someone would use if they're looking up your paper online, right? When you Google something, or you go onto PsycInfo or Google Scholar or whatever, you're typing in certain words. So these are the words that are going to help someone find your paper or term. So college teaching, student evaluations of teaching, online administration, response rate assessment. So you're coming up with 3 to 5 keywords. Page 3 starts your introduction. So this is the beginning of your paper. Again, you've got your running head. It's page 3. What's important to keep in mind here is that notice it doesn't say introduction. Instead, it has your full title again here. This is centered, and it is bold. And then without any extra space, again, I know college students sometimes love to put an extra space, you just start on the next line with your introduction, and the paragraph is indented. You can look online about how we do these in-text citations, and that will be important. So there you go. That's your intro. They're still going. Our introductions won't have these subsections, and you don't need those in these papers. And then whenever your introduction is finished, which is right here, you just start your method. Method does not get a new page. The word method is bold and centered. And then again, there's no extra spaces. The whole paper is double spaced, but there's no extra spaces. You got method, centered, and then over here on the left side, you're going to put participants or sample. Either way is fine with me. Bolded. And the next line down, indented, you're going to talk about your participants. And then we are going to use, again, the next little subsection, which can be design or procedure. We'll talk about it, whatever, when we do our paper, and we'll describe that. And then materials. And again, it can go in either order, but you see how they are bolded. Subsections are bolded off to the left, and then down a line, indented, and describing. When you're finished with that, the next section is results. So again, after you're finished with methods, next line is results, which is bolded and centered. And we are not going to have any subsections in our results section, so you're just going to go ahead and write your results. And then whenever results is finished, next comes discussion. Again, it's not on its own page. You just do the next line, bolded, discussion, centered, and then start your discussion section. After your discussion, wherever it ends, and no matter where your discussion section ends, let's say it ended here, you do a new page for references. So references gets its own page, bold again, centered, and then you're going to be looking up, and we'll be discussing how to write your references in APA style. But you see that they're in alphabetical order. The first line is not indented. It's the last name, comma, the initials, comma, last name, comma, initials, comma, etc. A period after the end of the authors. Then the date that the article was published in parentheses, then a period, then the name of the title of the paper. So this is electronic course evaluations, does online, And this is in sentence case, meaning just the first word of the title is capitalized, and then you see they're not capitalized after that unless you've got a second sentence or after a colon. Then you have the title of the journal that it was published in, and in that case the title is italicized, and this is in title case where every the first letter of every word is capital. And then you have the journal issue volume right here, that's also italicized, and if there's an issue number, it's in parentheses, not italicized, comma, and then the pages, not italicized again, period, and then the DOI number, which we'll talk about where these all come from the paper that you read. So there's references. Again, we won't have this many references. If you have a table, tables come next, and we'll talk about how you do a table in APA format, but it would look something like that. And then if you have figures, figures come next. This is how figures are supposed to look. And that's that. All right. So you're going to be using the sample paper to really follow the format exactly. This is where you don't get to be creative or do what you think might look better. We just follow exactly APA format. And then you finished your first paper, so congratulations.